What's up, guys? This is Teddy. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This video, we're going to be creating tables in SQL Server. And just hypothetically speaking, we've already got our bike stores database, our dummy database, but we walk into work one day and now our boss says that we're getting into the Pokemon business. We're going to have Pokemon at our bike store. And of course, there's not going to be any Pokemon at a bike store, but just for example's sake, we're going to have to create, our boss wants us to create a table to house all of our Pokemon data. And we're going to be tasked with doing that. And I'm going to create it with a script, and then I'm going to create it with a GUI, and I'm going to show you both ways how to do it. And let's just go ahead and start with creating the table through a script. So when you create a table, it's pretty much intuitive. You're going to have a create table, and we're going to have to put the schema, and then we're going to have to put the actual name of the table that we want to use, and we're going to house it within these parentheses right here. So why do we have this, and why can't we just put Pokemon? So in this example, we have these things called schemas, and schemas are the production and the sales over here on the left side. So schemas are just ways to logically group our data. Let's say like we added like a management portion, and maybe we had like management tables, but for this table we're just going to create but we're just going to put it under production. It's just a fun, goofy way to create a table. There's no real logical way. I'm actually going to delete this afterwards. But just remember, a schema is just the production and the sales, and it's like a way to group our tables. Key point: a table, you can see like what a table is. A table is just like an Excel spreadsheet. All of these little calendar things right here are tables, and a table, you can see just examples here. If you didn't look at any of my other videos, you can right click and you can select the top 1000 rows, and you can kind of get a visual representation of our table. So a table has a column and then it has a row. That's really it. You could just like any way that you would logically group any other type of data, that's all that you're doing. It's just got tables and rows. Sometimes people call them records. You don't really need to get too wrapped up in the name unless this is for college and you do need to learn those terms. But if you're just doing this to get a job and you're self-taught, yeah, just remember it's like an Excel spreadsheet. You've got columns, rows, and sometimes the rows are called records. So back onto creating the table. First, we're going to have the ID, which is going to be the actual name. So this right here, the actual is going to be the name of the column. And then we have an int, because in SQL Server, you have to be specific about what type of data that you put into this. And if you put a string where an int is supposed to be, it's not going to work, and it's going to give you an error. And it's like that for a good reason. So next thing, we're going to have this thing called identity. Identity is going to auto increment our rows. So this row, whenever you insert into an ID, this is going to be our primary key. And a primary key is going to be in every single table that you have. A primary key is just a number, or it's a value type, or it's just a number given to every single record that you have that's going to uniquely identify your data. You have to have primary keys in every single column, and I'll show you what a primary key looks like. So we'll go into the primary key, we're going to production products. If you notice here, each one of these is unique, and it kind of just goes up by one, and you have that because what if you inserted two of the same Pokemon into the table? You have to have a unique way to identify them, and that's kind of what a primary key is. It goes in it's a little bit more in depth than that, and we'll talk more about it. But for right now, let's not get too carried away. So next we have a varchar. We're going to create a varchar for our Pokemon. So we're going to go in here. A varchar is just going to be characters. And you will see char and you'll see varchar a lot. For right now, let's just go with varchar, but just remember that varchar is just a string of characters, a variable length string of characters. Sometimes you will see a char. A char is a fixed length set of characters. So when would you use a char? When would you use a varchar? A varchar you would use if you're storing things like names, if you're storing things where, you know, people's names are variable and vary in all types of lengths. You would use a char if you were just going to store like a code, or if you were going to store like a hash, a number that you know is going to be, say, 5 characters in length, and it's always going to be that, and it's never going to change. But in this case, you could store a char for a phone number, but in this case, we're just going to have varchar. And key point, a char is 2 times as fast as a varchar. So always keep that. If you can get away with using a char, do a char, but a lot of times it just makes sense to just have a varchar in here. So 255, and those are called data types. So next, we're gonna have a street for our Pokemon. Actually, let's not even have a street. Let's just do a phone and an email for production of our Pokemon. You could put as many things in here as you want to. You could put a street here, but I think just for example's sake, we just need to just get something into we just need to create a couple tables and move on. If you want to add more, go ahead and do so. So last thing that I forgot to explain is what is the not null. These are called constraints. Constraints mean that you can't do certain things with your data. These are data types. This is more describing the data that you can put in here. A constraint is going to be things like primary key, foreign key, not null. And once again, these are all things that are going to make sure that our data is very has constraints, and we're not putting garbage into our database, because you can definitely put a lot of garbage into a database. So we've got this red squiggly line right here. You can still run it. It's still going to actually create the table. Let's see here. Yeah, it's still going to create the table. And let's just go ahead and see what we actually created. So you got to go over here. You got to click this. You got to click the refresh button and get it to show up. So we've got our Pokemon, and we're going to select the top 1,000 rows. So this is actually what we created, and you can see the ID, the name, the phone, and the email right over here. So we've got ID, name, phone, and email. But as you can kind of notice, we don't actually have any data inside of it, and that will be the next video. But in this video, I'm actually just going to talk about creating the table. So we're going to create another table, and we're going to create a table with foreign keys, or we're going to create a table that has a relationship with our Pokemon table. So just like in the previous one, we're going to go production, make sure we got our schema, then we're going to go trainer. We're going to go trainer. I think that, no, that's not how you spell trainer. I'm a dummy. Oh my god. Okay. So same thing. We're going to have an ID. We're going to have an int. We're going to have an identity, because we want our table to auto increment. And then we're going to make this ID our primary key. Next thing that we want to do is we're going to have, because our trainer is going to be a person, it's going to have a first name. It's going to be varchar, because names are variable length. And then we're going to make it not null. So not null means you have to put data in here, or it's going to give you an error. So we're going to have a last name. We're going to have a varchar. We're going to make it 50. And we're going to make this one not null. Great. Then we're going to have an email. This one's going, once again, it's going to be a varchar. Varchar. Email's going to be long, so we're going to make this one 255. And this one's going to be not null, and it must be unique. So if it's not unique, it's going to give us an error, and once again, it's a constraint. So we're going to have an email, or we're going to have a phone. We're going to make this varchar. We're going to make this one just 25 because we know what it's going to be. You could make this a char technically, but that's kind of dangerous because phone numbers can vary so greatly. And what if somebody from a different country put their email in? It's kind of better just to use varchar. And then down here, we're going to have a foreign key. So we're going to have our pokey ID. We're going to have an int. We're going to have not null. So this must be put in, our pokey ID. And this is going to be this is going to be our foreign key. This is what's going to tie our table, like our key. Like, remember what I said? This is one of the most important points of SQL. This is what's going to tie our tables together and allow them to have a foreign key. So up here, we're going to have the pokey ID. Then we're going to tie them together. We're going to have foreign key just like this. So we're going to have foreign key. Then we're going to have pokey ID just like that. And our foreign key is going to reference. So this is going. You have to tell you have to tell SQL Server what it's going to reference. So it's going to reference our production.pokemon, and then we're going to have ID. Then we have to tell it on delete what type of. So basically, this is saying, what do you want me to do when I delete this? And you have to be explicit about this, because if you don't tell it what to do, when the tables are tied together, it's going to give you an error. You know, you see what I'm saying? So you have to explicitly say, when this deletes on cascade, means you're just going to delete the other records as well too. So hopefully this should run. Let's go ahead and see here, production. Let me just double check it. Okay, and it completed successfully. And we can go down here. We can look at our table. Great, so let's look at our, so go ahead and refresh it. And let me see. Okay, there we go. Then let's go ahead and let's check it out. Let's make sure. Great. So we've got a reference to our pokey ID, and we will have those tied together. So that's going to be for the SQL. That's going to be for SQL queries. So now we want to create a table, and we want to do it in the GUI. So if you're watching this and you don't want to actually use the GUI and you're good with just having it just like it is, stick around, or you can go ahead and leave the video. But if you want to learn how to do it with a GUI, that's what I'm going to show you how to do next. Okay, so now we're going to go in here and we're going to create these tables in the GUI. So go in here, just going to right-click tables. You're going to right-click table, and let's just create our production Pokemon. So we're going to go ID, and I kind of just like to quickly create all the columns. So we're going to go phone, we're going to go email, and that's going to be it for the ID. It's always going to be an integer. Go to here, we're going to create, this one's always going to be, not always, but for this case, it's just, we're going to create varchar. Names can be long, so we're going to give that 255. Go in here, same exact thing. We're going to do phone. Phones cannot be as long as names, so we're just going to give that 25. And then the emails can be long too, so we're just going to go varchar 255. So what you want to do to create your primary key, you want to go there, set that as our primary key. It's going to automatically uncheck that to be null. We don't want our name cannot be null. Phone and email, debatable, but we're just going to call that null. and we want to go up to our ID and set our identity. Otherwise, whenever we add records to it, it's not going to auto increment. So we're going to go identity, check that yes, and just leave those 1 to 1, and that should be it. The last thing that we want to do is we want to set the schema. So in order to set the schema, you right click at the top here, go over here, and we're going to put that into production just like that. And hopefully we shouldn't get an error when we try to save it, and we'll just call this Pokemon. So go ahead and hit that refresh, close the tables, and let's do it again here. Sometimes it takes a little bit, and you should see your Pokemon. Let's look at the table, and we've got our 4 rows just like before. Next thing is, this one's going to be a little bit more involved. We're going to create the trainer table. So once again, go table, we'll go ID, go first name, just like that, last name, go email, go phone, and just go up here. We're going to go int, create varchar, first name. Names can be incredibly variable, so we'll just go 255, and email, we'll give it the same thing, varchar 255, and phone, we'll give it a varchar 2, because who knows. We'll go 25, just like that. So let's set our primary key, and we don't want to allow nulls for the first name or the last name. You can allow nulls for phone or email, and we want to create our foreign key. So we're going to call this one PokeID, and this PokeID is going to be tied to our Pokemon. So we'll go int, and once again, we're going to have to set our identity for this, otherwise it won't auto increment when we add it. So we'll go yes, that's good. We also want to set our schema to the production, just like that, and then we want to go ahead and save it, and then do our form our primary key and our foreign key. So we're going to just create that table. We're going to call it trainer. So let's go ahead, let's make sure that I created it. Did create it. So what you want to do is you want to go into your design. So if this is already closed out, we've already got this up here, but if it's already closed out, you want to go to that design right there, but we've already got it open, so we can just go in here and create our also we need to make our email unique. So we'll go into here, we'll go to indexes and keys, and we'll set, let's see here, our relationships, indexes and keys, and we're going to go ahead and delete that. That's from before. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to make this unique. So make it unique. Go ahead, and it's going to save it. Then we want to go down here, and we want to set up our relationships with our foreign key. So here, tables tables and columns specified. So we'll go in here. Our primary key is going to be within our, so our foreign key is going to be our PokeID, and our primary key is going to be our Pokemon, and it's going to be the ID within our Pokemon database. So if that makes sense to you. The foreign key is the one that's usually at the bottom, and it kind of has the the name appended to it, and the primary key is going to be what is tied to it. So this is, like I said, how our relationships are going to be formed within our databases, and it's done through a graphical interface. So go in here, the following tables be saved to your database. Yes. Great. And that establishes our relationships. That is how you create databases within the GUI. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. We're going to be moving on to actually inserting data. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. And as always, thank you for watching.